I would also open it up for any general discussion at this point if anyone has any questions of any of the presenters that just recently spoke. I did have a question for perhaps Mr. Maloney or any one of the other presenters. Just for clarification's sake, for those who don't know, and we don't know, in layman terms perhaps, if you could go over exactly what the distinction is between 3G, what is G, or 3G, 4G, if someone can clarify that.
The truth is the providers don't even know. It's supposed to denote relative speed, but mostly it's a sales tactic. 2G is your voice communications was switched to digital. 1G was analog phones. Remember the old analog phones, the bag phones they had in the cars? Then they switched to digital phones for your voice, and so your communication is broken up into little packets and sent over. That's 2G. 3G was the data enhancement to allow you to hopefully get better response times for streaming video and stuff like that. 4G is supposed to be even faster. It's based around an international standard, but in terms of the actual data transfer rate for each one of those things, it differs by service provider, by region of the country. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just that 4G is supposed to be faster than 3G is supposed to be faster than 2G, which you could still transmit data via 2G.
But it's a speed issue.
It's supposed to be, but there is no hard number.
Not quite true. There is some bandwidth, somewhere like 100 megabits per second is around the peak speed that 4G is supposed to aspire to, but that's kind of where it is. But again, it's fairly loose depending on the area.
There's a proposed cap or aspired data rate, but it's mostly a sales tool. I have 4G now. Do you have 4G? No, I got 3G.
Also, Jim, I have another question. Being a person that doesn't have a smartphone, you talked about the data plan. Do you also are you also paying for a voice plan, or is your voice being part of that data?
That depends too. It depends on the, my wife has Virgin Mobile, which I think is the best. Because you can get both voice and data. Like she pays $40, now $45 for 1,200 minutes and unlimited data, which is like awesome, no contract. But they're not as good in terms of coverage because they're on the Sprint network as like Verizon and AT&T, who are the big players basically in the market. Most of the time, Verizon and AT&T offer your voice and your data, and you can get like a deal if you buy the two of them together. But they do offer them separately.
Thank you.
Also, I have a question too, or if you just go over a little more. The new Amazon device that's coming out for $199. Is by the general consensus on the internet or whatever stating that obviously they're lowballing it. It's a loss leader on this, so that Amazon can push more things on their website. If you could perhaps selling more apps instead of things on their website. Is that your understanding of it? If you could speak to that.
Well, my opinion would be that I actually don't think that that's actually under sale. Yeah, I mean, because like I said, I've seen 7 to 10-inch. I actually just mentioned before the meeting that there was a company in India that developed, through government support, of course, but they will be manufacturing 7-inch Android-based tablets or something like that for $35. That's what's causing some of these devices to drop like a rock in terms of price. And like I said, I've seen 7 to 10-inch devices for $100 with the Android operating system. And the Amazon Kindle is a 7-inch device running a modified Android operating system. So I actually don't think it's actually a loss leader.
Any need for caution to the parents who are considering that Amazon is really interested in selling more of their products from Amazon?
Well, I mean, of course they probably are, because you have to go, the marketplace that's installed with the Amazon Kindle is the Amazon marketplace, not the Android marketplace. It is a subset of, I don't know all the specifics, but it's my understanding it's a subset of the Android marketplace. But I think it's actually probably an attractive option, and Amazon tends to get high ratings in terms of their support of their devices and their customers. So,
I want to just throw it out there so customers are aware of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that with the Amazon device. I do have a Kindle 3G, and that what Amazon does is bundle a technology called WhisperNet. So if you want to download a book, you don't have to worry about having a data plan or anything. It's kind of all part of the package there. I don't know if the plans are with the Kindle Fire, if they're going to expand on that, or if they're going to, I would imagine that they would keep that where you would buy it, the wireless capability is there. But if you want to start doing Netflix and all this other stuff, there's probably going to be some additional costs for that.
Great, thanks.
Another question. Regarding the devices, there's devices that have Wi-Fi. All the devices I think you mentioned have Wi-Fi. But I'm assuming that if you buy an Android smartphone, you're buying a plan. If you buy an iPad, you're not buying a plan? I mean, if we're a parent that wants to buy a Wi-Fi only device,
Yeah.
what are we looking, if we don't want to purchase a data plan, how are we limited, or what should we look at?
Then you are limited to wireless only. There is an option on any of these devices to turn on and off your wireless, and obviously if you don't subscribe to the data plan, it's just never going to be available. So that would be one workaround, where you send your child to school with a device that just doesn't have 3G capability. They will be forced to have to be on a network in order to use the device.
I don't know that it could be any Wi-Fi, unless it's restricted to the school network, if there are neighbors
That's true.
with open networks,
Right.
which does happen. If you scan right now, I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah.
And then they will not, and that's the thing. I mean, how's a kid, how's a teacher going to know that the child is actually connected to the school network? Unless you get into the operating system. In Android, for example, you have to drill into the system settings, connectivity, and then look specifically at no one's going to do that. There's no way to readily see that, that's the Hooksett School District, that's the, SAU 15 connection. Unless you install an app that puts it right up there front and center, which would require additional input. You got to put the app in there, and it says, yeah, SAU 15 is active right now. I turn it on, I turn it off, I turn it on. There's really no way to know. There's really no way to know.
In the world of apps, is it feasible that like a school district develops an app that would easily indicate that a device is on the school network only? I mean, is it something that could be, that so a teacher could quickly just look at a phone and see a big, I don't know, a dot with an H in it or something, and say that they know it's on our network?
There are free apps that I don't think the school district will need to do that. But yes, they could. They could. It's really probably not a big deal. But yeah.
Sky's the limit on apps.
Yeah.
They could even require that apps are always running on it, and as soon as it drops off the network or drops, that the teacher's notified with it. It all depends on how permissive or conservative or the school wants to be with this.
You can even do such that before, how we have to sign the agreement, before a student's allowed to put it on the network, they have to install the app, which identifies they're on the network, and it also specifically gets the serial for that device, transmit it to the school network, and only because it is already a registered device is it allowed to connect. If it's not registered, it tries to connect and says, no, I don't have a SID, or I don't have a unique identifier for that device. You have not signed the agreement. You need to see, the principal before you can, and sign the agreement before you can connect this device.
Will it be easy for them, if that were the system, to track that traffic from that device if they were worried that that child was doing something that they shouldn't be doing?
Yes.
Because they would have identified the device on the network?
There are options. There's actually a couple, I didn't mention this because I was really going over my time, but there are things like, there's one I installed on my wife's phone that if I wanted to, I could actually know exactly what my kids are. We stand over our kids when they're on a computer device, so it's not an issue, but I could actually find out exactly what my child was doing at any time, what messages they sent, what they looked at, all that stuff. Now, kids are getting savvy, and they could also, unless the parent really knows what they're doing or has gotten some training or some instruction, they could probably work their way through that. think it's kind of funny that the school tech person thinks that the school network is safe, but he's getting consulting from his 8th graders. So I think that's kind of funny.
My other question would be, is there any way to detect, say a device is on the network and identified, is there any way to detect that that device, well, I guess it would go off the network if it goes on to 3G? Is there any way that electronically or data-wise the school's going to know if people are connecting to 3G, or are they really going to have to look at that symbol that you showed us?
Unless you set up an app to do that, which would require additional setup on the device and support and all that stuff, then no. Most of the time, if you're sitting here in the room, you don't have any idea if your device is connected to 3G or Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi signal could fade out, and all of a sudden it says, I need a network connection. It goes and grabs 3G. And then, it's back. I found the neighbors. Grab over to the neighbor's Wi-Fi. And look, back on 3G again. Or I lost my 3G connection. I dropped down to 2G. I mean, literally, that can happen on a whim, unless you specifically configured your device, usually through an application, to set up those types of controls. It's just, it figures most consumers are like, I just want to see the video on YouTube of the cute cats. And so they make it so that any data connection that's readily available, I'll hop to that.
There are plans like Verizon does have like parental controls that as a parent you could box them in or have different rules of how they access, but you would have to configure that as a parent for the account. So.
And even if the school developed an app, it would have to have a version for each of these different devices, right? So it wouldn't be
at least for the
generic
major devices, but then you think, well, is the school then liable if they don't support a device? Yeah, you at least need one for Android and iOS, and you need one that would run on most of the versions. You run the same situation you would with computers. I mean, corporations don't run all different sorts of operating systems and versions of operating systems with any kind of software you could possibly want on the machine, just for that reason, because it's impossible to support.
Or people who support Apple, for example.
One question I'd have for any of you guys is, it doesn't sound like this is consolidating. It doesn't sound like it's all going to come together on one generic platform or operating system. I keep hearing different variants are kind of popping up, and is that what your feeling is?
Well, in the United States, typically you get two front runners, PepsiCo, AT&T, Verizon.
Right.
I think you're going to have two front runners in the United States, and I think those will be Droid and iOS. With Steve Jobs passing, I can remember back in the 90s the different track that Apple took before Steve Jobs came on the scene. And I think with Steve Jobs' energy gone, that's going to really impact the company. That's just my opinion. And I know that Droid is slated to, based on current trends, catch up with iOS in terms of usership and number of apps by 2012. My belief, because of the nature, the architecture of the platform, it will actually surpass iOS after that point in terms of popularity and number of applications available for it. But I still think there will probably be those two players as the predominant players. That's my 2 cents.
I had a couple questions about the policy.
Sure.
So one was about audio. Does the policy include recording audio? Does the school have already a policy for audio?
Let me just get to that page, I'll tell you.
Like for instance, let's say a teacher is giving a lecture and they want to record it. Is that allowed?
Number 8 is the one that would cover that, and that's student may not use the device to record, transmit, or post photos, videos of a person or persons on campus, nor can any images of video recorded at school be transmitted or posted at any time without the express permission of the teacher. I think what they may be doing here is including audio with video. I know in my own business, audio recording is almost gone because people will be like, well, why don't you have the video to go with it? Even meetings and so forth. That used to be audio recorded are now both.
Um,